Joined now by Kris Hartley from Melbourne. He's a public policy lecturer at the University of Melbourne's School of Social and Political Sciences. Why don't we start there? This memorandum of understanding on this joint oil and gas development project, as Barnaby was saying, there seem to be some concerns among the public in the Philippines on this. Give me your take on this agreement.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here. I think there are three things that are important to remember about this MOU. First of all, it is not quite as detailed, nor does it require the level of commitment of a standard agreement. So I would expect there to be a lot more discussions going forward in terms of solidifying something that is more detailed and certainly more political scrutiny around that. Secondly, it covers really only the actual exploration and not actually the extraction of oil or the exploitation of those resources. So I think that that's something that is important to keep in mind as those tough questions about territorial sovereignty will have to be addressed down the line. This, in a way, sort of kicks the can down the road. Those are a couple of the initial issues that I would see with this. I would finally add, of course, that in terms of this agreement, there's actually expectations that there would be no specific reference to territorial claims or maritime claims within this MOU. So it really does not address some of the key issues and some of the big concerns that have been discussed around the disputes that have been occurring. So this is at a very friendly level, at a very surface level, and probably serves some important signaling and diplomatic purposes right here at the front end.
And Kris, as Barnaby was pointing out, Duterte really wants to fast-track some of these infrastructure projects, 29 agreements in all, some of them infrastructure, some education, agricultural deals. Any sign that any of these can jumpstart some of these projects?
Well, Duterte, in his campaign up to 2016, ran on a build, build, build platform, which was to improve what is now a significant infrastructure deficit in the Philippines, pursuant to that the lacking fiscal capacity as well. So cooperating with China on securing these agreements and this funding is a real key aspect of Duterte's efforts to try to put his promises into motion and to begin to move forward. Something like $24 billion were discussed in agreements, or rather in discussions in Beijing some time ago. Nevertheless, some observers have expressed some concern that many of these projects have not come through yet, although it's been a very relatively brief time since some of those announcements. So I think that will be interesting to watch down the road, how much of this comes to fruition and more specifically the terms of that debt and whether the terms favor the Philippines or otherwise.
Kris, how would you describe this relationship? Because obviously it was strained over maritime issues not that long ago. Where do you see it now?
Well, it's hard to pinpoint over the course of time. It's taken a tremendous turn in the last couple of years. Xi Jinping has called this the rainbow after the storm, so to speak. As your viewers may well know, a couple of years ago in 2016, the Permanent Court on Arbitration in The Hague ruled that China's claims of the Spratly Islands and other disputed territories with the Philippines were illegitimate. At that time, that arbitration was brought by then-President Aquino. So Duterte ran on a rather equivocal voice regarding this issue. At times, he was saying that it was important to be collaborative with China, and at other times, he was saying that he would fight to maintain sovereignty. So it was difficult to actually pin him down in the campaign. After his election, he has, around which time this agreement came down, he's refused to actually hold China accountable to that and has instead opted for a friendlier approach. And in fact, in recent comments, has even said that China is already occupying the territory and that it is useless to try to escalate any sort of military tensions around that.
Kris Hartley joining us from Melbourne, Australia. Thanks so much.